Welcome back everybody on YouTube. This is Justin with Parity InfoSec, and I know it has been a while. I've taken quite a bit of a break just to do a little bit of refresh, had some work going on, doing stuff around the house. So I apologize for the absence, but today we're back with a new box. This is Ready from HackThe. Ready is oddly reminiscent of the last box I actually showed you. It's been a while, but the last box I showed you was Laboratory, and it was a GitLab box, and it had two of the same CVEs that this box has. So I kind of apologize, it's a little bit strange, but we're going to break out a different proof of concept, and we're going to use that. But it's all based around a GitLab 11.4.7, which was an older version than what Laboratory had, but the same SSRF and CRLF that we used in that one, we'll use in this one. And that's just an easy way to get into the door, and then we'll be able to get a user pretty simple. From there, getting root is kind of a two-step process. We're going to find out that you're in a Docker. So we'll need to get root on the machine, and that's just simply tracking down the right configs. And then once you have root, then you can use a Docker escape technique. This one, we're going to mount the host drive. And I'll show you two different ways that you can look for the drive, make sure it is what you're needing. And then you can mount it, and then there's two things. Obviously, we can start just right away going for the root, but there's also the SSH key available, and we'll be able to take that, copy it down, and then SSH into the main host box of Ready. For this, you're only going to need a couple tools. I said browser, console, and LinPeas. I did say that there is going to be a CVE, so we'll download that on our browser, bring it down, and just do a little Python. Real simple. But other than that, this box is on the easy end of a medium, and let's just go ahead and get started. As always, let's start with an Nmap. So we're going to do Nmap. The box here is 10, 10, 10, 220, and then we'll do scripts and versions. We'll go ahead and let that run. You're going to see two ports that show up on this one, 22, so you've got your SSH port. And then there's going to be a different port in use, 5080, and it's going to be for Nginx, Nginx the web server. Takes a little bit of a minute. When I run the version and the scripts, there is a section on there, and here you see right here where it runs the HTTP robot script. And this one has 53 disallowed entries, 15 shown. There's a lot of information in this one. But you do see that the HTTP title is GitLab, but it comes up saying GitLab is not responding. Let's see what that means. Let's go ahead and open up our browser. And we're going to go to 10, 10, 10, 220, and like I said, 5080. And I've got my burp proxy on. Let's turn that off. Try again. All right, here's the 502 error. Whoops, GitLab is taking too much time to respond. But we can take a look at the robots file. Robots file has an enormous amount of information. Lots of disallows, disallows, disallows. But there is one single allow that's in the script, and it's for the sign-in page. So it allows you specifically to sign in to avoid very ugly search results. Go ahead and just copy this real quick, and we'll drop it in up here at the top. Oh, got too many slashes. And I've had this issue before where it just wouldn't take. Really can't understand why it does what it does. But eventually, it just like this, you can see it's processing. It takes a minute for it to run it down. Not sure why. Don't get discouraged if you run into that problem. But you get here, and this is the GitLab user sign-in. There's a sign-in and a register. Well, I don't have an account, so let's go ahead and register. If anybody ever wants to get a hold of me, I am available at info@parityinfosec.com. Just type in a quick password here and register. And like I said, it kind of takes a minute to process, but here in a second, it'll give us that opportunity. to see what's going on inside of GitLab. So it drops us right to the dashboard. With the dashboard, you see you have projects, groups, activity, milestone snippets. There's a little chart here to look at statistics. And over here is the user information. So we know that we're parity. We can set our status in case you're using this from a social media aspect. I've got a profile. Let's take a look at settings. So settings gives you a whole ton of information to include an authentication log. It's going to tell you who's authenticated to this. We don't have any history at all. Active sessions, GPG keys, maybe there's an SSH key. Now this is the user that I just created, so not going to have any SSH keys. I didn't upload them, they don't exist, and they're not static. They weren't created by the system. So you can generate one or use an existing key and drop it in. So access token is all the same, but this is not a privileged account, doesn't get us much. Let's go to help. So very much like every other system, if you take a look at help, it's going to tell you the version. In this case, 11.4.7 with a big warning here that says update ASAP. That right there is kind of a flag. So what do? Google that stuff. So Google, go to a Google box and we're going to tell it GitLab 11.4.7. It already comes up with exploits, so they are out there. And there's a couple here. So exploit DB has a couple. I'm going to go with this one, this new one. So originally when I did this, I don't think this one existed. Norbert Hoffman did a really good job of just writing this up. And I may not like the way he put his switches in here, but the switches make it a lot easier than hard coding. You can kind of add everything dynamically as you go along. So we'll go ahead and download this, bring us over to our drive, and then just remember that U is for username, P is for password, G is actually for the URL. In this case, you do need to write HTTP, give it a protocol, and then L is going to be your local IP, dash capital P is going to be port. Everything else is going to be kind of handled by the system, no big deal. And this will give us our reverse shell. So I'll download this. We're going to save it to 49334. CD HTTP. I'm going to make a directory called ready and go in there. We've downloaded the exploit, so let's go ahead and just copy from my downloads. 49334. I'll put it right here. And we really don't even need to change anything, so I'm not even going to nano it. If I do say Python 3 49334, it's going to come back and it's going to give me an error because I didn't put these in. They're not super descriptive. That's why I went ahead and kind of covered that with you already. This part could have been written a little bit better, but let's go ahead and just run this program. We're going to type U for username. That's going to be parity. P is going to be mine, just a simple garbage password. G is going to be the URL. Like I said, must contain HTTP. It needs a protocol. Otherwise, it's going to kick it back. We don't need to give it the 5080. It knows that. It's hard coded in. So we'll go ahead and skip that. But we are going to give it the local, which is 10.10.14.2. And then for my port, I'm a sucker. I like 9999. Let's go ahead and open up a new tab. NC, MVLP. And we'll listen on quad 9. Go ahead and let this run. Just like when we were logging into the website, this takes a second for every step. The system just isn't running that fast, so you're going to see 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, and it creates a project with a random name. It runs that project, and that's how it runs the code. And it comes back here and it says exploit completed successfully. Come over to this tab, and we have our reverse shell. If I say ID, I am Git. So I like to run which to make sure, hey, I do have a Python 3, so let's go ahead and Python 3, C, and we're gonna give ourselves a slightly better shell. So import pty, pty.spawn, and give it a bin bash. All right, so slightly better. We can see that we're not in the home directory, but the working directory that we were given is GitLab-Rails working. So we are running some GitLab. Where do we go from here? So you can search around. If we run LinPeas, let's go ahead and do that because we're gonna have to run it later anyways. Let's go ahead and cd var html sudo python 3 m http.server 80, and then I will put my information in. I got a server running. I'm going to go to my favorite hacker home directory, dev.shm, and I'm going to wget 10.10.14.2/linpeas. Cool. So chmod add execute to that linpeas.sh, and then let's run it. Oh, that's strange. It's got execute. Let's go to TMP. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. We're gonna go ahead and wget this. Chmod plus x linpeas.sh, and then run linpeas.sh. All right, so it runs from temp. It does not run from dev.shm. Strange, but it happens. So as you go through here, you're going to see that we are git. We did all this. It doesn't have ping. And just keep continuing down. You're going to see the drives here, and this is going to be important later, but this is temp dev sda2, which oddly says mounted on root pass, and then you have your SHM. If you come down here, you will start looking at the environment. The environment has some weird stuff in it, like GitLab path outside hook. Hook is just kind of letting you know that you might be inside of a Docker. You're hooked inside, but that hook allows you outside too. And down here, is this a container? Sure enough, it says, looks like we're in a Docker container. So we'll be struggling through that, and then here you see the devices SDA 1, 2, and 3. So they're there. You can go through here. Here's all the PS, the processes. There are a couple strange processes. I'm gonna, I was gonna shrink it down for a minute. Let me get back up there. All right, so here's the processes. We can see them a little bit better because I shrank it down. But all right, well, can't seem to find what I was looking for. Maybe it's showing up on some other systems. My apologies. Let's go ahead and keep looking. We'll go down here. Everything's looking at op GitLab. We got some cron jobs running, not a lot of information. Not a lot of information here. As you come down here, you start to get into the users. So you got a user called dude, which is your 1000. That's usually the target user. You see that a lot. And his home is home dude. So we'll keep that in mind as well. Does look like there is root login, prohibit password, so possibly SSH key. And you know, we can keep coming down. Op GitLab, var op GitLab. Just a lot of log information. It does show that there is a bunch of files inside another home, which is home dude. And there's our user.txt. So we'll go find that in a second. And then here's all the stuff that we can look at. There's a file here called dockercompose.yml. That's one of the files I was looking for. So that'll give us some of the information about the Docker. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the op backup folder as well. If we keep coming down here and it starts to look at the config files and then into all these files with password and username, we're actually not going to find what we're looking for, and that's okay. This system didn't put things in the obvious folders, but that's just the nature of the beast. For CTFs, it's great that you look in home, var www, var backups, temp, etc., the root, the mount. That's great that you look in those folders, but it's not going to be enough. So we'll start with going to cd home dude. We'll do lslia cat user.txt, and we got our user.txt. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So there's our user.txt. So we got it. Yeah, user. Now this is where we start to play around with some of those config files. I talked about the Docker XML or YML. It's a YAML. CD opt backups. CD opt backup. All right. So if we look in here, we have the Docker compose YML. Not too big. You've got a GitLab secrets, and then you've got a GitLab.rb. Let's cat docker, and then more, so that we can go page by page. And right away we see, hey, here's the information, 6379, and it mentions this file.read root pass. Just a super weird comment, but there is a file called root pass. And that's it. There's not a whole lot in here. So if we cat root, I think it was root underscore pass, there is a file called root pass, but that root pass is for the GitLab Rails implementation, and that is to reach out. That is it. That is a little bit of a rabbit hole. Don't chase that one. That password does not work. All right, let's go ahead and look at this whole folder. Let's just grep for pass everywhere. All right. So we'll start right here at grep pass. We see that root pass, root pass. We get into the GitLab.rb file, and there's an account password. It's been redacted. That's great. This. Here's an SMTP password that is sitting here. That's kind of strange. Let's go ahead and copy that. And there's some information about MD5 hashes and how you put that information in there. But no more passwords. So let's just go ahead and use this su root. And we are root at GitLab. So that was the privilege escalation password that we needed. Huzzah, cd root lslia cd ssh lslia. Nothing. They didn't leave us an SSH key. They didn't leave us any kind of information. But we've pushed ourselves to Docker root. And I kind of discussed this in the opening. What can we do with that Docker root? Well, there is an opportunity to do a file mount because we're root. If you try to do it as the original Git user, it doesn't work. I'm going to just go ahead and start that process here. So we'll go cd dev shm. As we're root now, we have a little bit more flexibility. I'm going to make a directory called parity, and then we're just going to mount. Now, before we mount, I told you I was going to take a look at two different ways. So let's do fdisk-l, which is just going to list the disks. And it lists up above, there's all this information. But we're looking at this table, so there's a 1, 2, and a 3. This one's called the BIOS boot. It's 1 meg. This one's the swap file. It's 2 gig. And then this one is the Linux file system. That's 18 gig. That looks a little tasty. So that's SDA2. If you run df-h, it also does another check of the file systems. And this is what we saw when we were running LinPeas, which is, here's a temp file structure mounted on, here's mounted on the root, mounted on dev. This is kind of where they're at, but the only one that keeps coming up is dev SDA2. So that's going to be our file system. Now that we're sitting in this directory, we have a directory called parity. So we're just going to go ahead and say mount dev SDA2, and we're going to say mounted on parity. Perfect. CD parity. And if we just do an lsla, we've got all the file structure from the host box through that hook that I talked about back on this box. Well, we've got a root. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So cd root. Don't do a /root. Don't put the slash in front, because that'll treat it like the root of GitLab. We want to go to the root inside of the parity folder. And if you look, there is a root.txt. So if we cat root.txt, we've got it. So you've got root. Huzzah! Pretty fast box. I gotta be honest, I did not think it was gonna go this fast. But we're not quite done. We've also got a folder up here called SSH. So if we cd into SSH, lsla, you're gonna see that there is an ID RSA. So we'll go ahead and say cat ID RSA. And it is a private key, so we're just gonna copy from here to there. Copy that. We're gonna come back over here. I think we're done sharing any folders, so let's just go back to HTV. So tilde HTV ready, and then we'll nano ID underscore RSA. Oops. Get that right. RSA. Paste this in. Well, that's not what I want. Let's go ahead and try this again. We're going to copy from here down. Stop it there. Copy it. Paste it. There we go. That's better. I'm going to save it to that ID RSA, and then you always want to modify the permissions. I like to just type it out by hand, 0600. That means only the owner can work with this file. And that's a message you'll get if you ever try to SSH without doing a 0600. So we'll just SSH root, and then we're going to go straight at 10.10.10.220, and then we'll say we're going to use the ID RSA. And right there pops up, we are root at ready. If we go into root, if we cat root.txt, it is going to be this B7 F9. If you come back over here, B7 F9, these match. So we've got our root. Thank you for coming out today. Such a fast video, but I'm looking forward to being back for the next one. This was fun to get back into the groove of things. I definitely apologize for this being such a big gap between videos, but we did go over a CVE for GitLab 11.4.7 using authenticated RCE and a Docker escape. So great techniques to learn. I want to thank Bertolis. Bertolis made this box really great. Again, easy medium, but easy enough to get you started. If you have any questions, here's all the ways to get a hold of me. Come find me on any of those avenues, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have a great one.